Well, wow, it's been a while since I have been a part of a webinar. So this is super exciting that I get it to do it with Tom Worth, who is Greenshades payroll product manager. But he also has the expertise of also having run payroll in the past for Greenshades. So he has a lot of experience about our product and about running payroll. I am Danica Kipa. I run the marketing department here at Greenshades. So today, payroll isn't just about accuracy. We're constantly juggling evolving tax laws, remote work setups, and compressed timelines. The margin for error is thinner than ever. One small misstep, a late deposit, a missed differential can snowball into thousands of fines or hours of rework. In this session, we'll walk you through the highest risk areas of payroll cycle and show you how to spot and fix mistakes before they impact your team's bottom line. We'll start by showing you how frequent and expensive payroll mistakes really are. Then we'll walk you through the key areas where problems most often occur, backed by real examples. The second half of this session is all about prevention, the most important thing, how to structure your process, what tools to use, and how Greenshades is designed to stop mistakes before they cost you. The most common payroll mistakes. Here are the usual suspects, the mistakes we tend to see again and again. Sometimes it's a misclassified wage type that throws off your taxes. Other times it's missing certification or unrecorded hours that cause miscalculations. These aren't rare errors. They happen every day in businesses of all sizes, and each one has a cost. Tom, which ones are the most common and most costly that you see?
Sure. I appreciate that we did that poll because my number one is on theirs as well. So it is incorrect pay code settings are a big one for me. Pay code settings only happen once, and once you use them, you typically can't change anything. So it's kind of locked in. The only way to make corrections at that point is to make a new code, redo the pay run, make corrections, takes time. Mistakes can linger for a very long time if you don't notice it. Typically, it's only caught during an audit or if you do a manual year-end reconciliation. So it can take some time to find those things, and yeah, it's an issue. The other part that I see a lot is state taxes can be quite a challenge. If an employee moves to a state where your business is not currently set up, penalties and interest may be applied for any missed withholding in SUTA, and it isn't getting into the ever-changing rules for local taxes. And that isn't even getting into that, rather. So local taxes are definitely a big challenge as well with all of this.
So as we all know, payroll isn't getting easier. It's getting more complex. Remote work has expanded. Tax exposure across jurisdictions is increasing. New regulations, leave laws, benefit rules, and they're all being introduced at the state and federal levels, something new every quarter, keeping us on our toes, eh? And enforcement is only increasing.
Absolutely. So in this environment, the margin for error is razor thin. One outdated tax table, a missed location change, or incorrect deduction can trigger a compliance breakdown. That's why payroll mistakes are no longer isolated incidents. They are system level vulnerabilities that need proactive provision.
Great. So when mistakes happen, they take a toll on operations and on people, right, Tom?
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's a miscalculated check or delayed payment, those errors usually trace back to a preventable process failure that occurred. While the cost of fixing them might be measured in dollars, the real damage is usually employee confidence. For employees living paycheck to paycheck, a single mistake can cause a financial hardship. Repeat errors can erode morale, create frustration, and increase turnover.
So I guess the bottom line is payroll mistakes are more than compliance risks. They're trust risks. That's why prevention needs to be built into every stage of the payroll cycle.
Absolutely. One of the most immediate and costly consequences of payroll mistakes tend to be tax penalties, um, which can be a hard thing in a lot of ways. Around 2020, the COVID happened. A lot of companies became more remote work, Greenshades included. We went from having 5 states that we were typically into about 26 after a few months because people were, we became a remote company. More people were able to spread their wings and go wherever they wanted to, which caused some complications as far as the, keeping up with compliance rules for various states. A big thing, part of it too, was that typically rate change notices for rate change notices and frequency updates for withholding are typically done on paper. So, and when you're a remote company, the paper tends to be placed on several different desks. So at one point, we were changed from quarterly to monthly, didn't get the notification in time, so penalties and interest start to add up. So when something goes wrong with the tax setup, you don't really find out until the penalties do show up, and they can escalate quickly. So let's take a closer look at those.
Okay. In 2024, the IRS assessed nearly 27 billion in employment tax penalties. But here's the catch. Over 23 billion was abated. That means the penalties were later forgiven, often because the businesses corrected the error or had a valid reason. Let me tell you from my personal experience, though, there's not as many people working at the IRS anymore, and it's harder to get a hold of someone. So let's prevent the issue before they occur.
It was
Most of
hard before that
these,
even.
yes, most of these issues came from late or incorrect tax deposits. They weren't bad actors. They were mostly just process breakdowns, like you forgot to pay on time. That's what happened with my personal ones. That makes them preventable with the right systems and oversight.
These penalties are typically caused by operational issues, manual entries, outdated schedules, or system gaps, all of which can lead to costly errors. If your payroll system doesn't flag these problems or offer alerts, you might not know something's wrong until a penalty notice arrives. These operational errors don't always get caught right away. Without alerts or oversight, they can quietly build up and turn into penalties or tax notices weeks or even months later.
By the way, that late thing was on the extension. So I really do know the date taxes are due.
Oof.
Deep dives. So where exactly do these mistakes happen and how do you stop them before they snowball? Tom, let's dive into that some more. This is one of the most common and expensive areas where mistakes happen. Withholding. It isn't just about selecting the right state. You have to consider where the employees live, where they work, and where the reciprocal agreement is in place.
Absolutely. Lately, taxation at the local level has been ramping up quite a bit as well. It's easy to miss these additional requirements, especially if you're unfamiliar with the jurisdiction. If the rules aren't followed correctly, it affects everything downstream. Your 941s will be incorrect, your W-2s will have to be updated, your state filings, and especially employee. You need more than a static tax table. A reliable system should map employees to the correct tax jurisdictions based on both home and work locations, apply reciprocity agreements accurately, and validate W-4 exemptions against the most current forms. It should also ensure location logic as captured during onboarding and not as a cleanup task to do later. And just as important, it should automatically apply mid-year tax rate changes using a real-time tax engine so nothing slips through the cracks.
And if I recall, GP does not have a real-time tax engine.
No, they are updates that you have to download and apply. And typically when you make those, you have to make sure to back up your system. So that way, if anything changes, then you have a way out if there's a problem. So not automated whatsoever, especially local taxes. Local taxes in GP aren't usually in the GP release. It's typically just going to be the state stuff. So usually those you have to handle manually. Every time
Yikes, that
changes.
sounds like a pain in the butt.
There's a
So
whole lot to it.
Either use the Greenshades tax tables as your supplement, or maybe consider moving to Greenshades Online Payroll. Let's talk about some other stuff. Pay codes, pay code misconfigurations are one of the most common causes of hidden payroll errors. If a bonus is incorrectly classified as regular earnings, it can distort tax withholdings, inflate reported wages, or throw off overtime calculations.
Sure, absolutely. Shift differentials are another one where inconsistency creeps in. And if some shifts apply a flat $2 per hour rate and others use a 10% premium, but your system doesn't know the difference, you'll run into calculation issues. Overtime logic needs to account for these differentials accurately. Blended rate overtime is especially complex. When an employee works multiple rates within a single pay period, your system must calculate a weighted average to determine the correct overtime, not just default to a single rate, which a lot of systems currently do. To prevent these issues, your system should map each earning type accordingly, either regular, supplemental, apply shift differentials consistently, and support blended overtime rate calculations. It should also review exemption logic regularly and match it to both the employee's role and applicable labor laws. Real-time enforcement is key to keeping everything aligned with policy and compliance requirements.
Makes sense. So moving on to mid-cycle changes and retro pay. Mid-cycle changes introduce some of the most complex payroll risks and are often the most overlooked.
Yeah, mid-cycle changes can be a real issue. So let's start with retro pay. If you're correcting wages for a previous period, the system needs to apply the tax rates and deductions from when the work was earned, not necessarily when the correction is paid. Many payroll tools fail to calculate that correctly, leading to compliance issues. Final pay is another common pitfall. Some states require payment on the client, even unintentionally, can open you up to penalties. Then there's off-cycle payroll. These runs are often rushed and standard checks get skipped. That's when small errors turn into larger issues, like missing deductions, misclassifying wage types. To reduce these risks, the system should recalculate retro pay using period accurate tax logic, trigger alerts for final pay deadlines, and apply the same validation rules to off-cycle runs as regular ones. It should also track all manual overrides with audit logs and automatically apply garnishments or benefit deductions to adjust earnings, not leaving anything to chance.
Makes sense. Audit readiness isn't just about tidying up your records. It's about having full visibility into what's happening as it's happening. So that sounds like real time. I like it.
Absolutely. So, dead on. So, key risks often show up in small moments: an unapproved time card, a tax jurisdiction that wasn't updated when someone moved, or a pay setting that gets changed without documentation. These seem minor until they snowball into audit flags or compliance violations. If you catch those issues before it's finalized, you prevent costly rework and downstream impacts that affect both you and your employees. Your system should automatically alert you to upcoming deposit deadlines, flag missing, incorrect, or unapproved time entries, and validate changes to pay settings and tax codes before they go live. It also needs to track every configuration change with a timestamped audit trail and integrate directly with your ERP to eliminate manual rekeying or disconnected data. Being audit ready means you're not scrambling for answers. It means you already have the data to back them up. And with more jurisdictions enacting laws like paid sick leave, audit readiness now includes being able to produce accurate accrual logs when required.
Why mistakes snowball? And here's why this all matters. Most payroll errors don't start as massive breakdowns. They start small. One missed tax update, one outdated certification, one time card that slips through. But without the right checks in place, those issues compound. A small misstep in setup causes a tax miscalculation. The tax miscalculation leads to a late deposit. Then comes the penalties, then the rework, then the employee questions, and therefore the trust erosion. That's the snowball effect. And the longer it rolls, the harder it is to stop.
Absolutely. What we're advocating for today is a shift in mindset from reactive correction to proactive prevention. Build in checkpoints, use alerts, revisit your configuration regularly, treat payroll like the high stakes function it actually is. Because when you catch these issues early on, you don't just avoid errors, you protect your business, your compliance standing, and your employees' trust.
So using Greenshades, Greenshades is built to actively catch and correct payroll mistakes, not just during processing, but at every stage of the payroll cycle. And I think Tom can speak well to this.
Absolutely. So we start off with guided configuration. So with tools like our tax jurisdiction wizards and rule-based pay code validations, listen to me. These help prevent errors before they ever impact a paycheck. For example, when setting up withholding, it's easy to overlook local taxes, especially for unfamiliar jurisdictions. So we automatically detect and apply the appropriate local withholding taxes based on employee work and home locations, including work from home. So, because a lot of systems kind of miss out on that sometimes. This reduces the risk of over or under withholding and saves teams from chasing corrections later. During the actual pay run itself, we have real-time alert flags for our missing or outdated data. Whether it's a misaligned wage type, expired certification, or an outdated tax table, you're notified before the payroll is submitted. This is especially important for today's remote workforce, where employee location changes can trigger different tax requirements. We also monitor location changes, and update tax settings automatically to keep compliance intact. After payroll is processed, Greenshades supports audit readiness through built-in reporting and automated filing tools. One example is our reporting for paid sick leave accrual tracking, which helps maintain compliance with record-keeping requirements across jurisdictions. These reports can be pulled instantly to satisfy audit requests or internal reviews. And finally, our tax compliance engine is constantly updated to reflect the latest federal and state rules, removing the burden of manual updates. So no more having to go into a system and update your local tax because a rate changed mid-year. We do that automatically for you. It ensures your system is always aligned with the most current regulations.
Great. So together, these safeguards give teams more confidence and control, reducing errors, lowering your risk, and saving time across the board.
Absolutely.
So let's jump into a real world example. Tom, I believe this is something you might have dealt with.
Oh yeah, a few times. So now with COVID and the business world has kind of changed. We're seeing more and more remote work. Like I said, Greenshades went remote a number of years ago, and we were initially in 5 states. We opened up to 26 before it was all said and done. And one state that came up, which was an unusual one for me because we never really had anyone in Michigan, but we had an employee that moved from Florida to Grand Rapids, Michigan, set up accounts for everything. And the employee reached out asking because all of a sudden they had a local tax that they weren't really prepared for or expecting, specifically for Grand Rapids. So we double checked and looked through all the documentation. So Grand Rapids specifically is interesting. There's a couple of states that are like this, or a couple of locations where it can vary by address whether or not you are applicable for the tax. So Grand Rapids is that way. So is St. Louis, Missouri. A few other locations like that as well, where there's actually a guide that tells you whether or not you applied. So we were able to find the guide and confirm that yes, this person was in fact supposed to have Grand Rapids taxes applied to them. So because the system automatically picked it up, we maintained compliance with a location I wasn't overly familiar with, and made sure that the employee was whole and everything was set up correctly. So automated taxability. So having a system automatically assigns them based upon home and work locations maintains compliance for you. So make sure that even if it's a location you're not overly familiar with, you're still going to be within compliance for that location. It's also peace of mind as well, because having that apply as well as updating the local taxes for you automatically, it frees you up from tracking additional annual tax rate updates and ensuring your employees are taxed correctly.
Let's move on to the best practices checklist. Even the smallest payroll system can take you so far without the right optional discipline behind it. That's where your internal processes really matter. And this checklist is designed to keep your payroll cycle running smoothly quarter after quarter.
Exactly. So first, review your tax and pay settings regularly. This means confirming that your tax jurisdictions are still accurate and your pay codes reflect current wage rules and business practices. For example, if you've hired employees in new states or localities, make sure those jurisdictions are accounted for and the proper local taxes are being withheld. Greenshade does a lot of this automatically, but it's always worth reviewing to confirm everything aligns with your current setup. Second, monitor time card approvals closely. One of the most common sources of payroll mistakes is late or unapproved time entries. Delays in approval can lead to retroactive corrections with complicated payroll runs and create opportunities for error. Having a weekly or biweekly cadence to review these and close out time cards helps keep your payroll cycle clean and consistent. Third, run an audit check before finalizing payroll. This should be a standard part of your pre-processing routine. Use built-in alerts to catch red flags like negative net pay, missing pay codes, or outdated tax settings. Greenshades provides real-time validations during payroll, so you can resolve those issues before they turn into costly corrections. Lastly, it's critical to revisit your configuration after any major business change. This includes opening new locations, changes in employee status, like switching from a contractor to full-time, or any labor laws that might impact your workers. These moments are often overlooked, but they have a direct impact on payroll accuracy and compliance. For example, if a remote employee moves states or your business expands into a new city, your tax obligations shift. Greenshades is designed to adapt to those changes, but it's your internal process that ensures nothing slips through the cracks.
Right. And this checklist isn't just about adding complexity, it's about protecting your business from surprises and giving your team confidence that payroll is being run accurately and compliantly. So
Absolutely.
thanks for attending today. We will leave it open if anyone has any specific questions they would like to ask Tom about payroll, about Greenshades. You can put them in the chat. We will answer them live if we can. And if we need to research more, we'll take them and get back to you later.
Sounds good.
Nobody's really dropping off, but nobody's putting in any questions. I'm kind of surprised. We have an expert available to us right now. Oh, we have a hand raised. Unmute Wendy. There we go. Wendy, you are unmuted.
The chat feature shows that it's disabled, so I don't know if that's part of the problem or not, unless I'm in the wrong spot. But my question, I'm actually already a Greenshades customer, and I just hired an employee. I'm from South Carolina, but I hired an employee that lives and he's going to work in South Carolina, but lives in Georgia. Who do I need to talk to my tax representative about setting something up for Georgia taxes? Because I'm not sure. This will be the first time I've ever had this because we've always been just South Carolina.
Gotcha. Typically, whenever you get into a new state, it will show up in the tracking options once the first time it sees the tax show up in the system. So it'll apply Georgia at the time, and then through the tracker itself, it'll give you instructions on how to go about setting up an account with the state. Typically, Greenshades doesn't really usually set up the tax accounts themselves, but we can, if you reach out to your tax service representative, they can tell you the correct sites to go through and the right steps to take to get set up within Georgia for withholding and for unemployment.
All right. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Well, before any more questions, I will say this was so much fun, and I think we might consider doing this quarterly just with Tom's expertise. Maybe he can talk about any new changes that have come and what's happening with the product, but also just take your guys' Q&A because I find that quite valuable.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you guys joining us today, and we will look in to see if this would work to be a quarterly event. I was pleasantly surprised about how many people showed up with interest. So thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Everyone.